Hello and welcome. My name is Derek with Chief Architect Software. Thank you for joining us today for this live presentation. Today we will be talking about electrical plans and lighting. I prepared about 40 minutes of content, and once we finish with this, we'll open it up to live questions from you all, the audience. During the presentation, we encourage you to also type in questions you might have using the GoToMeeting interface. We have about 500 people signed up for the webinar, so it may take some time to reply, but we'll try to get to all of your questions before we wrap things up. Today's session will be recorded, so in case you need to leave early or you missed something, we'll send you all an email in the next day or two that'll have a link to that recording. The email will also contain a survey link. We encourage you to take the survey. Let us know how we're doing, give you an opportunity to make suggestions about Chief Architect. We would really appreciate that. So with me on the webinar, we have a number of Chief Architect staff. They'll be answering your chat questions. You also might hear them chime in on some of the questions that we have in a live Q&A as well. Just to be aware of that. And in the presentation today, we're going to be covering electrical plans. We're going to touch on adjusting lighting as well. We have some detailed resources on lighting, so we'll be chatting out those resources as we get to that section. So look out for that in the GoToMeeting interface. Something we've been doing to help reinforce learning in our free Thursday webinars here is to give you all some homework. We call it the Chief Challenge. So you can go out to Chief Talk and download the plan that I'll be working on today. There are steps for you to perform that are built into that plan. And if you put that together and post it up with the hashtag Chief Challenge on our social, we're choosing a few participants and we'll send out a Chief Gear care package to you. We'll be chatting out a link with more information about that Chief Challenge, so look for that in the GoToMeeting interface. So that Chief Challenge is a great way for you to reinforce your learning and also have some fun. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into Chief Architect here. So the first thing I wanted to touch on before we jump right into the electrical design is saved plan views. So this is a relatively new concept in Chief Architect, and if we have a look at the top of our interface here, you'll see that I have a floor plan shell selected as my saved plan view. And if we click on this drop-down menu here, you'll see we have various saved plan views for this particular project. And in the default template in Chief Architect, you'll likely see similar saved plan views that are pre-configured by us. These are things that you can edit yourself as well, but they're pre-configured for standard things like creating an electrical plan. If you have a foundation, framing, things like that are built into the saved plan views. And what that allows you to do is control what's displayed on your screen as well as control some defaults. So currently we are in this floor plan shell, and I'm going to change over to our electrical save plan view. So in this electrical plan view, you'll notice that my screen has changed here. Things are turned off that you might not want to see in your electrical plan, and the things that you do want to see are turned on, such as the fixtures and connect electrical switches and so forth. So if we take a look a little bit further into what goes into this Save Plan View, in this drop-down menu right next to the Save Plan View, we have an Edit Active View. So I'm going to click on that, and that will bring up this dialog box here. And I'll bring or select the Selected Defaults panel. That's what I'm interested in. And you'll notice here that I have a default set as my electrical, and what that means is we have these various defaults set up automatically. They're just configured so that when I draw dimensions when I'm in my save plan view for electrical are going to go into the electrical dimensions layer. Text is going to go into the electrical text layer. Markers, callouts will go into the respective electrical layer. And you'll also notice at the bottom here that we have an electrical layer set. So this is where we control the display of things that we don't want to see in this particular view. Now if we want click the Define button, we can go into the layer set, and this is where we can turn on and off the various things that you might want to display for your electrical plan. So I'm going to leave this as it is and click OK. And we're not going to make any changes here. I just wanted to call out that those save plan views are very handy, relatively new in Chief, and certainly a great way to increase your productivity. So with the electrical layer set all set up here, let's go ahead and get started with getting into our electrical plan and design. So what I normally do is I like to start with placing all my electrical fixtures in terms of the lighting first. So I'll go in and add in my recessed can lights, wall sconces, light fixtures, and so forth. And then once I have all the lighting put down, then I'll go through, add my switches, then connect the electrical, and then finally go through and deal with all my outlets. So the first thing we're going to do here, and you'll notice in our plan here, I do have some electrical already set up here. So we're going to be focusing in kind of in this kitchen and living area. And I have the rest of this already set up just so you can kind of see what a completed electrical plan might look like. But we're going to go ahead and focus down here on the kitchen and living area. And the first thing I'm going to start with is adding recessed lighting. And we're going to do that in this living area just because it's a little easier to see what's going on in this area. And we're going to go up to our electrical tool, and I'm going to go and select on our light option here. So with this light tool, you'll notice when I come into our screen and I hover over an exterior wall and click down, I'm going to get an exterior light fixture on there. If I click on an interior wall, I'm going to get an interior light fixture. And if I click in our ceiling plane, I'm going to get a default light fixture that's a recessed light for the ceiling. So what we get for these fixtures are configurable, so it's just a matter of configuring what you'd like for a default. So if you use recessed 6-inch cans for your ceiling, that's something you can set up in advance with the electrical tool. And that's simply found in defaults. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add some recessed lights to this area, and what we want to do is plan out how that's going to be arranged in this room. So the first thing I'm going to do is we'll go back up and get our recessed light, and I'm going to drop a light down into this lower corner right here. And now that I have that light set there, I'm just going to go up to our dimension tools, and we're going to grab our center line dimension, because I'd like to dimension to the center of that recessed light. I'm going to pull out a dimension to this wall and to the interior of the side wall. And this will just give me an idea of where that light fixture is placed. So I've got about 2 feet and 3'7" off of that wall. So that's going to be my starting point. Of course, I can adjust that if I want, but that's going to be my starting point for copying additional lights in this area. And what I like to do is I like to kind of envision roughly how many lights or recessed lights I'm going to have in this area. So based on the size of this, I'm figuring I'm going to have 3 total lights going up and 3 rows of lights going to the right here. But what I don't know is what the spacing would be on that. So I use a little trick to figure that out for me, what that spacing might be, because I like to be specific on that. And what I do is I go down with selecting this recessed light, I go down into our edit menu at the bottom, and I click on our multiple copy tool. And then I click on this secondary edit tool for multiple copy interval. And that will open up this dialog, and we have 2 options here. We have an offset between copies when dragging, and we can put in an exact number. That's what I normally like to do. And then we have an evenly distribute copies when dragging. So I actually personally use both of these when I'm laying out my cans in a big room like this. So the first thing I'll do is I'll set my primary, since I want 2 copies going up for a total of 3 this way, and I'm going to set my secondary copies to 2 because I'd like 2 rows going over to the right. And I'm going to click OK, and you'll notice that my mouse, when I come over that recessed light, has changed over to a multiple copy cursor. And I'm going to left click my mouse. I'm going to drag up, and you'll notice when I do that, I get an evenly distributed 2 copies. So depending on how far up I pull that, I get an even distribution between those 3 total recessed lights. So when I get up to an area roughly of where I'd like to be in that room, I'm now going to release the mouse, that right mouse button, and I'm going to drag over to the right. So you'll notice that that's now evenly distributing to the right. So I have 2 copy operations going here. And what I'm going to do is pull that over until the center row aligns with the center of those windows down at the very bottom, so right down here. I'm going to pull that over until that center row of lights is roughly in the middle there. And what I'm doing is I'm just getting a rough idea of the layout, so evenly spacing these in this room. So I want to know what the dimensions are going to be between my light fixtures. So now I can go up to my center line dimension, and I can do a quick center line up and down here. So I'm going to call that 5'3". And then I'm going to do a quick center line going left and right here. So I'm going to call that 6 feet. Okay, so let's undo that. And now I'm going to select this recessed light. And we're going to go over to that same copy tool. And we're going to set the interval again. But this time we're going to use the offset between. And the primary offset is going to be that 5 foot, 3 inches. And the secondary behavior is going to be 6 feet. Okay, so when I click OK there, now I can come down and grab that multiple copy. I'm going to drag that up, and you'll notice that I get a copy of the recessed light here and here. And then I'm going to release my right mouse button, and I'm going to drag over, and I get those copies exactly at that interval. And of course, we can confirm that if we just grab our center line dimension. I can drag a dimension down and see my 5'3" there. I can drag another dimension and see that 6 foot interval. So that could be a handy tool when you're trying to lay out lights in a room like that and you're trying to figure out what you're spacing. You know, for some, maybe that initial evenly distribute, and you might center that in the room and not worry about exact dimensions. Maybe that's fine. If you want to go to the extra step of getting exact dimensions put in there, using that evenly distribute, and then setting in an exact interval based on those measurements can be a real time saver to get exact dimensions. Okay, so the next thing we're going to take a look at is putting some lighting over this island here in our kitchen. So I'm going to open up my library browser here. So on the right hand side, I've got what looks like a stack of books. And you'll notice in the library browser, we have several different layers here. We have a folder for core catalogs, bonus catalogs, manufacturer specific, and then we have our user catalog. So in my user catalog, I have some lighting already set up here. So I often will set up shortcuts for the things that I use frequently in my designs, and I've kind of narrowed this down just to things relevant to this demonstration, specifically electrical and lighting. So in my light fixtures folder here, I have a shortcut to this pendant light. So Chief Architect comes with literally hundreds and hundreds of light fixture options that you'll find in the core catalog, and then you can also go out to the Chief Architect 3D library and download additional content there. So this pendant that I have, we're going to add over our island, and I'm going to come into the island area here and zoom in a little bit, and I want to get a snap point to the center of this cabinet here. And I'll bring that out, and then I'll click, so I got that midpoint snap you can see with the blue dotted line, and I'm just going to click that pendant light down over our island. So in this case, I know the interval. I'm just going to space these pendant lights out at 36 inches. So with that pendant light selected, I'm going to go down here and click on my multiple copy, and I'm going to set that interval here to say 36 inches. I'll click OK, and then I can simply grab that and drag that out at 36 inches. So that's good enough for our island here. And of course, if we wanted to dimension that, we can do that as well. Okay, so we've got our recessed lights here, we've got some pendants, and the next thing I want to add in terms of lighting is going to be some strip lighting, LED lighting, or rope lighting. So let's open up a 3D view. I'm going to close down my library browser, and we're going to go in and we're going to create a full camera inside this room. And I'm just going to drag that full camera here and have a look at our kitchen. Okay, and I'm going to tile my view, that way we can see what's happening in our camera view here as well as in our plan view. And what I want to do is add some LED lighting on top here. So right along this upper soffit on top of our cabinets, I'm going to add some LED strip lighting there. And then I'm also going to add some LED strip lighting underneath these upper cabinets as well. So what I need to do before I do that is figure out what the height of that is going to be. So I'm going to click on this soffit area and just double click to open it up. And I see a value of 121 here. So we'll maybe say 121 and a half is going to be the location of our LED lighting on top of that. So I'll just click cancel to keep that value 121. And then in our electrical tools, we have an option for rope lighting. So we'll activate our plan view and grab that rope lighting tool. And we'll zoom in a little bit into our kitchen. And I'm going to drag that rope lighting right along the top here. And then we're going to drag another strip of that right along here as well. Okay, so you can see that here in our plan view, but what we need to do is we need to set the height of that, right? So let's open up that LED strip light. Just click to grab that and click the open object. So you'll notice here that I have the height off of finished floor is set to a 1/2 inch. That was just what was set as the default here. So I know that's going to be 121 and a 1/2 inch. So that's all set. We can set the distance between the LED lights along this path or along that rope. In the light data, we can get into how the brightness of the individual lights as well. We'll touch a little bit more on that a little bit down the road in our presentation. For the polyline, this gives us information on the length of that. And then in the moldings, we can change what that rope lighting looks like. So this is more of a traditional rope style light. If we wanted to set that to make it look more like a strip light, you can change the profile here and get the look that you need if that's important to you. So we'll go ahead and accept the changes that we've made there and click OK. Now just to verify that we have that up there, I'm just going to pan that down, and you can see already on top of that that we have that LED lighting in our render view. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is add some strip lighting underneath our cabinet. So this is going to work in pretty well the same way. So we'll activate our plan view, get into the strip lighting, and we're click that here. And now that I have that set down, I like to copy that onto the other side since we have a very similar configuration. So with that selected, I'm going to click on the copy and the reflect, and we're going to reflect that right around this range hood area. So I have a copy of that rope light right on the other side. And then again, we'll need to set the height of that. So let's click on an upper cabinet and see what we have in terms of the height. We'll open up that upper cabinet, and we're looking for the elevation or the height of that off the floor from the bottom. So we have 54 inches. So I'm going to call that maybe 53 and a half. Should be okay for the height of that strip lighting. So I'll click on the strip light here, open that up, and let's make that 53 and a half. And since we have another one to do, I could have done that before I did my copy. That would have been smarter. But we'll go ahead and change that here, open it up, and we'll paste that value in as the height. Okay. So we'll double check that we can see that on the bottom of our cabinetry, and in fact we can see both strip lights there in this 3D view. Okay. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is adding switches. So I'm not going to go through and put in our recessed lights in this area just because we're limited on time here. And I'm going to move on to adding some switches and showing the connect electrical for our lighting plan. And let's go ahead and expand our plan view here, and we'll zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to close our 3D view. And I'm also going to just delete these dimensions that we have here just so that's not cluttering up our view. And I'm going to go up to our electrical tool and I'm going to grab a switch. So for adding switches, if it's a single, double, triple gang, typically you're just adding multiple switches on, and you just add a secondary switch right next to it. If you want to change the position of that, of course you can click on it and move that over. We do have single and double gang switches that you can use out of the library, but I typically just add those in as single switches and move them closer to each other. I'm also going to add a switch over here just to highlight a three-way, how that works. So we'll get our switch and add another switch, and this is going to be for controlling our recessed lights here. So for connecting our electrical, now that we have a couple of switches in there, under our electrical tools, we have a connect electrical. And that allows us to hover over the switch and come down to the first recessed light. And then it's just a matter of quickly dragging that and connecting electrical between all of the recessed lights that are in this circuit. So just going to quickly do that for this bank of lights. Of course, if we want to change the arc on these, we can select that and just grab this that diamond here and change the arc if you'd like to on individual ones or other ones. And then if we wanted to create another switch on this side that connects this bank of lights, just a matter of grabbing the connect electrical and choosing any of the lights in the bank. You can just grab and drag that up to the switch. And then when you do that, the program will recognize that these are all connected. It'll put automatically a three-way marker that will show up in your electrical legend as well as your material list. Okay, so a couple of other switch options here. Again, if we wanted to do that for our island, we can just come up here and grab and connect the electrical for the pendants that we put in. So I'd like to add a switch in for our garbage disposal and also a receptacle or a plug for that. And then we're going to get into adding receptacles into our plan. So I'm going to open up my library here. And again, I have some shortcuts. So I'm going to close down my light fixture and then go over to my switches. So I have a few standard switches that I have in my shortcut list here. One of them is an air switch that goes into a countertop. So with that selected, I'm going to come over and just drag and click a switch into this countertop. And let's move that switch and put it over here next to our sink. And then I want to add a an outlet for the garbage disposal underneath here. And if I go into my outlets, Chief Architect has many specialty outlets that are pre-configured for you, and I really like to use these because it helps to know what the purpose is of various switches. So I typically, particularly in a kitchen where there's so many dedicated receptacles that are kind of task oriented, so to speak. So in here we have a garbage disposal outlet. I'm going to click on it, and I click that underneath our sink. And when we do that, we get this specialty outlet added with a label that will show up in our electrical schedule, so that we know that's for the garbage disposal. And of course, if we want to connect that switch over to the outlet, we can do so with the connect electrical. So some other specialty items that you'll find in our library that I have over here, we have a range. Move that over a little bit. We have a hood and we have an electric range. So let's go ahead and drop those into our plan here. So we'll just drop that onto our wall. So that gives you a marker for the range, and then hood as well. We'll add that to the wall. So I really like to use these specialty outlets. These are all located in the standard library, so our core library here in Chief Architect. And you can also download additional electrical. I'll talk about that here in just a minute as well. So we'll add another outlet here for a refrigerator. And that's all I'll deal with here for outlets for now. So I mentioned about downloading additional content. So let's open up our Chief Architect 3D library. I'm going to bring that over real quick just to show you. So at chiefarchitect.com in the 3D library, and if you scroll down, we have categories here, and I'm looking for the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. If we expand that, I wanted to point out a couple of things here. We have a specialty decor type or style receptacles, and these have USBs built in. So this is a catalog that you can download. If you have SSA, you can download that for free. And then we have our specialty electrical right here, which has some interesting, nice custom plugs for things like desks that include multiple plugs as well as USB. So that's a nice add-on. And then for the international customers, I know we have lots of those in our webinar here. These are electrical outlets that are specific to international standards. So great to download those. And again, in the Chief Architect library under our core catalogs and under electrical and plumbing, and then electrical, you'll see specialty outlets that are found in this category right here: floor, ceiling, and surface mounted. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about is adding our standard receptacles or outlets in. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we have a little bit broader view of our floor plan. And under our electrical tools, we have our 110 and our 120 outlets. And we also have an auto place outlets. I use this a lot. It's a great tool for saving time. So if I click on that tool for auto place outlets and I come up, say, to this bedroom up here, all I have to do is click once in that room, and it's going to add outlets in, and it's going to do the best job it can at spacing those out per code. And when you click on an outlet, of course, if you want to change its position slightly, we can grab and move that around, slide it up or down, so you can adjust where those outlets are located. If we click on that auto place outlets in a room like a bathroom or a kitchen, say I click it in this kitchen right here, or sorry, in this bathroom, I'll zoom in here. You'll notice that it detected that this is a bathroom, and it placed an automatic GFI over the cabinet that's in that room. So it's handy for making sure you get your GFI outlets there. Now if I use that same tool and click it in the room that we have over here. And you'll notice if I click in this area that I have a room divider that's dividing the kitchen and the living room here. I also have a room divider that's dividing this hallway with this area of the house, and then this hallway as well. Now you might think when you click on the electrical auto place outlets, and I just click in this room that's down here, that it would just place outlets in this area. It does not. It will place outlets throughout this entire area. So as long as there's not a hard wall between the rooms, it will place outlets that's in this entire open area. And the reason that it does that is it wants to maintain spacing if there's not a wall. So in other words, if I had a line divider between these two areas here, it might put an outlet here and an outlet here, and they're spaced too closely together. So just wanted to point out that behavior, and that auto place outlets can really be a great time saver for you to get those in there. The connect electrical does work for outlets as well. I don't typically do that, get to that level of detail in my plans, but that is an option. You can also add low voltage things like speakers are in our library. You can connect the speakers using the connect electrical tool. So these are all options to get into in your electrical plan. And then of course cable connections and data wires and stuff like that can be added as well. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is have a look at creating an electrical legend and or an electrical schedule. Now there's two ways that you can go about creating an electrical legend. You can use our schedule tool that's automatic in the program, or you can use a text-based electrical legend, and that is something that we have already in the library that you can use. So we equip you with making electrical legends easy, and you can choose one way or the other, and I'm going to cover both of those in our demonstration here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to close our library browser, and we're going to open up our project browser. And in the project browser we have a listing for schedules, and I'm going to open that up. And in our schedules I have an electrical schedule already set up in here. So I'm just going to double click on that to open it, and we're going to show you how this works. So when we place a schedule in Chief Architect, and the way that we do that is just under our tools and under schedules and then electrical schedule. So when we click to place that, that's all automatically going to show up in our project browser under schedules. And I have two schedules that are already configured here for this project. I have an electrical schedule for switches and outlets, and then I have an electrical schedule that has lighting and others. And you'll notice that it's already pre-populated, and the items that are on this schedule correspond to what's in my plan. So for instance, if I go through and I remove this exhaust light right here, let's go ahead and tile my view. I know that that exhaust fan here is pertaining to that item. If we click to delete that item, that's going to automatically update in our schedule. So that's why I typically like to use schedules to create my legends, because I know that they're not going to get out of sync. And I'll show you how the text-based schedule works here in just a moment. Okay, so the way that I created these two so that we have different schedules, you'll notice that if I go up to my schedule tool and I just place a schedule for electrical and I don't make any modifications, I'm going to schedule a long schedule that includes all of the items by default. And if we want to make changes to a schedule, we can just double click it. This is what I've done for these, and I can uncheck, and let's say I want to make this schedule only deal with outlets. So I can check the only outlets here. The 2D symbol is fine. Quantity, floor, and description are the other columns to include. We have others here that we can add as well. And then I'm going to click OK. And that's going to show me a schedule that just has the outlets. Okay, so you can break this down into different categories, switches, lighting, fixtures, or you can include them all in a single schedule. Okay, so the other way that this can work is using a text-based schedule. And in our library, we have an example of this that you can use. I'm going to open up our library here. And in my user catalog, I have an electrical legend here as an example. And I'm going to drop that down just so you can see it. So this is a text-based schedule. So this isn't necessarily smart. So if I go through and I remove that exhaust fan light, that's not going to update on this because it's text-based. In fact, when I drop that in here, it's an architectural block. So we can select that and explode it using the explode tool in the edit button, edit toolbar at the bottom. So now we can edit individual objects here. So if we don't have that fan light, we can delete that from our list. Obviously this is a more manual process for creating a legend, and you have to be careful if you make changes that you're updating your legend manually, but it is an option, and it can look nice where you have all your lighting recessed lights here in a row and you call them out. Might be a better way of displaying that for some people. So once you make changes to this, of course, you can group that back together. You can add it to the library and use it in future plans. But we do have this legend. If you just search legend in our library in the Chief Core catalogs, you'll find a legend in there for your use. Okay, so the next segment we're going to get into is just touching briefly on how to create an electrical plan, so how to send these out to our layout pages. So what we'll want to do is get back into our plan view. So I'm going to select on our plan here, and we'll zoom out a little bit. So we'll say that our electrical plan is complete and we're ready to send this out to our layout page. So we're already in our saved plan view for electrical. We're happy with what's turned on and off, and we want to send this out to a layout page. So up in our toolbar here, we have a button that says Send to Layout, Control U on the keyboard. And if we click on that, we're going to be prompted, what page do we want this to go on with our layout? So this is a new layout. We're going to just put it on page 1. We can choose for send options. Do we want to do the entire plan view, the current screen? I'll go ahead. I usually do the entire plan view, but in this case we'll just do the current screen, and we'll adjust that layout box when it gets out there. And then the other thing I'm going to take a look at and confirm is the scaling. So because this is a overall larger plan, it's not just this kitchen room that I'm showing, I'll go ahead and stick with a 1/4 inch scale. So when I click OK, that's going to put this view out to our layout page, and this is our viewport. When I select that, we can grab the edges and drag in the edges as far as we want. In fact, if we wanted to just get into our kitchen area, of course we have that option to do that as well. So we'll go ahead and keep the that entire plan on here, and then we can arrange that on our layout page. So maybe I'll put this down here next to our text for floor plan, and that shows it at 1/4 inch scale already. And then the next thing we'll do is just same operation for getting over our schedule or the electrical legend. So if I want to send these electrical legends over, we'll zoom in on those and again click our send to layout. We can scale this, so we'll send it to page 1, current screen, 1/4 inch scale is fine. We'll click OK. And now we have that electrical legend put over to our layout page. So that's how that process works. Okay, so the next part of our presentation, and this is going to just touch briefly on lighting and controlling lighting. Just wanted to show some options for that. So I'm going to go ahead and close this layout. We don't need to save changes to that. And we'll close our electrical schedule or legend. We don't need to save that either. I'm going to open up a completed plan here. So pull over this plan, very similar to what we've been working on, just with a bit more detail in there. And I'm actually going to switch over to our camera save plan view. And I'm going to double click to open up this camera view. So just wanted to touch on lighting and its importance for 3D renderings. Lighting is very important for rendering. You can see in this scene here that things are very bright and look real nice, and we're just in a standard view here. And I want to call out that lighting has become a bit less important over time. In the past, the light sources that you have in terms of these electrical fixtures and recessed lights were pretty important for render views. They were important for PBR or physically based rendering. So right now we're in our standard render view. If we switch this over to physically based rendering, this is a more photorealistic view, and you'll notice the difference between that where you can see the light source. There's actually a strip light underneath this counter island here. There's also some strip lighting in this area here, and if I call your attention when I switch that back to standard, you can see that sort of wash out and you really can't pick that up. So lighting prior in this physically based rendering, if you didn't have light sources in the earlier versions of physically based rendering, you really had very dark scenes, and it was much like a ray trace where you had to have good lighting set up. That's become a bit less important, and I actually had some slides I wanted to show real quick just to give you an idea of what the difference might look like between the different render views. So I'm going to bring up a example of a standard render view, and this is with the lights off. So standard render view, all of the light fixtures that are in here are simply turned off. If we scroll to the right, this is a standard view with all of the lights turned on. So certainly brighter, but the difference between the two renders are not a huge dramatic difference. Okay, so next one I wanted to take a look at is our physically based rendering. So this is physically based rendering with no lights. All the light fixtures, recessed lights, the strip lighting, everything's turned off for this render view. If we scroll over and take a look at that with the lights on, so you can see the lighting under here, accent, but again, the overall scene looks pretty good because we're doing a better job with our general lighting and not needing to rely on the light sources if they're not present quite as much. Now, where this is not the case still is for ray tracing. So this is an example of a ray trace, and same scene, all else is the same, all the lights are turned off, and you can really see in a ray trace that this is a pretty dark scene. This is with all those light fixtures turned off, and if we go to the next slide here, you can see really for ray trace a very dramatic difference between the lights being turned on and turned off. So it's still the case that lighting in the scene is very important for ray tracing, a bit less so, although for physically based rendering, lighting, you can see those subtle differences. So I just wanted to bring that up. So if you're not doing ray tracing, adjusting your lights is not as important anymore. But if you are doing ray tracing, you're looking at bad lighting and good lighting, the difference being quite significant. So let's take a quick look at how we adjust and turn on and off lights in Chief Architect. go ahead and close down those example renderings, and we're back into our plan here. So a couple of things that we can do to adjust our lights. Number one, we can adjust the intensity of lights, so how much light is coming off of a given fixture. We can adjust the color of light, and we can also turn a light on and off. So we'll just pick on this individual fixture just to highlight how we can do that in Chief Architect. I'm just going to click on it, double click to open it up. And in this fixture, if we go down to the light data tab, we have, first of all, this is the light source. There's only one light associated with this. If there were multiple lights, like this had 3 different light bulbs associated with that fixture, you would see different lights there. Then we have the light torch size, light type, or the source type, which is an option for a point light or a spotlight. Typically I use a point light. That's what most of ours are set on, and what would be recommended. This is the control on how bright that light is, and then below that is a control on the color of the light that comes off that. We can also specify whether or not that this fixture will create soft shadows in a ray trace view. And then we can also change the position of the light versus the fixture here. So if we wanted the light source to be closer down to the end, we can adjust it left, right, up, and down using these X and Y positions. Okay, so for a light fixture, when we have that selected, we have a shortcut edit tool for turning that on and off here as well. So might be able to see that a little bit better with the recessed light. If we click to turn that light off, you'll see that the light dims a little bit in terms of the recessed can light. If we click on that and turn it on, you can kind of tell that that light is on and off by clicking on that. Another option that we have for lighting is using our Adjust Lights tool. So that's up in our toolbar here at the top for Adjust Lights. And in this dialog box, we have the ability to turn on and off lights very quickly. You also have the ability to use light sets. So in this case, we have a light set up for this plan, and we're using this kitchen, living, master, office area. And this light set has various lights that are turned on and off for this particular scene. You can make new sets, you can copy an existing set, you have controls for using those. So these, if you're into lighting, these can be very handy for controlling the lights that are on and off in a given plan. A nice thing with these are that you can group select. So if we want to group select all these puck lights here, we can use the control or the shift option for selecting multiple items. So if we wanted to grab all these pendants, we can group select those, and then if we click the uncheck, it will uncheck all those items and turn them off in our plan. Alrighty, well, we are ready to light it up for some questions from you all. And I'm going to bring up a screen here. So in our Q&A session, if you haven't participated in this before, the GoToMeeting system, in your little toolbar there, you have a hand. So if you click on that, that raises your hand and says, hey, I want to ask a question. When you do that, Carrie is going to see your raised hand. She's going to call out your name. And then what you'll need to do is unmute your microphone. So if you don't do that, we're not going to be able to hear you. So while you guys are raising your hand for questions, I'm going to run through a couple of slides here. First of all, wanted to run through learning resources. You're all in this free webinar. We do these webinars on Thursday. Great way to learn, so encourage you to join those. The next webinar we have coming up is on 3D walkthroughs. We're going to be including some information on what's coming in the new version in our webinars in October. So they are listed on the website. So all the topics for October are on the website, and this next one's coming up Thursday, October 1st. Other resources we have virtual training seminars. So because we can't do our physical classes anymore, they used to be 2-day classes. With what's going on with COVID, we are doing that in a virtual capacity. We've had really good feedback on those. So the virtual training classes, they are still the equivalent of 2 full days, but they're just split out over 4 different days. So 4 half days, and it's a full 16 hours of training, residential introductory, intermediate, and a kitchen and bath class. We have 20% off going on that, so they're a great deal. So really a good resource for you guys for learning. A couple of other things, on-demand classes. You can be in your pajamas watching those, so well, I guess you can with the virtual training too. But those classes you can buy and you have instant access to the video. They're not assisted with a live instructor. One-on-one training with a certified chief architect trainer. That includes a screen share, training videos, how-to tech articles online, and chief talk. All right, we are ready to turn it over to Carrie and to light it up for questions. Carrie, do we have any questions out there?
Thanks, Derek. We have Ashley Casper. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. This was so helpful. So thank you very much. My question was, when you do a legend or a schedule, are you able to kind of customize it in a sense where you can create your own column to, let's say, like number the items?
Let's see. Yeah, I think let me bring this up here and let's take a look. So project browser, I'm going to bring up a schedule. So you want to just have numbers that arrange over on the column here. Let's take a quick look. See if we have a number option. Oops.
I think it added it to the right. It looks like maybe.
Oh yeah.
See it?
Yeah, and you can arrange where that is. Yeah. So
cool. Okay.
we'll create a call out. So you can arrange where, if you want this to show up on the left-hand side, certainly you can arrange where the columns display. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I learned something new there myself. Didn't know that would work for electrical schedule. So thanks for bringing it up.
Okay, thanks.
You got it.
Can I ask one more?
Sure thing.
The kitchen and bath training class that you have in November, is that for beginners or intermediate or?
It's kind of both. So what we do is we give you quite a bit of homework to do prior to that. So really the level that you're getting there is more intermediate. So for the people that are on the lower end, more introductory, we give you homework and suggested coursework to do prior to that. So it is pretty fast moving and definitely a more intermediate class.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
Yeah,
Derek,
thanks, Ashley. Yes.
can you turn on the electrical labels, please, on the floor plan?
Yeah,
Show the little correlation between the schedule and the plan.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Didn't. Oh yeah, there we go. Is that what you were looking for, Al?
Yeah, that's it. And you can also set these up so that you can actually show the number in the electrical schedule instead of the actual label. So you could get a straight up correlation between the fixture and the schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Al.
Derek, since you're talking about schedules, we had quite a few people writing in and ask if you could just review how a schedule is created. Where do they go to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get back into, well, what I'll do, let's close that. Yeah, I'm just going to go up here. What you can do is if you have no schedules created, you might come up to our CAD details and create a new CAD detail. and then call this electrical, or just, okay. Okay, so we have a CAD detail here, and we've created that for electrical schedule. We can see it's open. So let's bring this over, just make it a little bit bigger. And in our tools, we have a schedules and electrical schedule. So we drop that down into our plan. And once we do so, this, no matter where you drop this schedule in your plan, that is going to show up in your schedules folder of your project browser, so you can always find it there. In this case, I just created a new detail for that, for this new electrical schedule. So that's the process for adding it down. Once you have the electrical schedule put in place, double click on it, and this is where you can start to change the name. If you wanted to call it a legend, you can do so. We can add and remove the various columns here, and we can also drill down into the various categories of electrical. That way, if you want to have a legend or a schedule specific to outlets and switches and light fixtures, you can do that.
Thanks,
Is that,
Derek.
yeah.
We have a question from Nancy Finnison. Hi, Nancy.
Yeah, hi. I had a question. For electricians, they always want to have those dimensions, the placement of the lighting from the wall, and which means center lines. And you didn't put that on your electrical plan, and it gets really, really messy when you've got a ton of lights, when you've got tons of center lines and dimension lines. And I'm wondering, could you show me how you're doing that to make it not so messy?
Yeah.
And why you didn't include it in your plan?
Yeah. So one reason I didn't include it in my plan is exactly why you asked the question, is that it can
It's so
kind of
messy, yes.
yeah, it can clutter up the view. So what I usually put in the minimum amount of dimensions that are required. So I'm going to go up to my dimension tool and center line. So I'll typically only put in a center line for one fixture. So I'll grab a center line that goes over to this wall. I'll grab a center line that goes down to this wall. So then the electrician knows the location of that initial the initial recessed light. And because these are centered in the room, I don't really need to put center lines anywhere else here, because my 3.6 is the same on this side as it is on that side. So then I'll go up to my center line, and maybe not add it in this area, maybe I'll add a center line here and a center line here, and that shows what my spacing is up and down. And again, I don't need to repeat that for all of my recessed lights, because the spacing is uniform in this case. So other than that, yeah, there's not, I mean, if you're wanting to add, again, these are uniform spacing as well. So I would probably just do a center line on this one recessed light and not worry about the others. So yeah, that's, does that answer your question?
Well, yes. But when
Yeah,
they're not, excuse me, when they're not uniform, it does get really messy.
it does. Yeah. And I don't think there's really a good answer other than putting as few dimensions on there as is necessary. And yeah, there's you need that level of detail, then you're going to have to deal with that. So one thought might be is, like on the layout page that I created, you can have an electrical plan that shows all of these connect electrical, so that the electrician can see where the switches and outlets are placed, and then you can send a copy of that plan that take away the electrical lines and just have that for dimensions. So then you have a floor plan that have all your electrical info, and then a floor plan that just has your dimensions for your electrical.
Oh, that'll make it a little less messy. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then I had another question about when you've got your rope lighting and other types of lighting, when you've got a driver for those things. How are you showing the placement for the drivers?
Driver meaning like the power supply?
Yes, the transformers, yes.
I
Yeah.
would Yeah, I would just create a CAD block. So if that's something you use pretty commonly, I
Mm.
would create the CAD block for it using a text tool or CAD tool. So I might just draw out a small box here and put text in there, group that together, and add it to the library so that I can place that in my plan. It has the text along with the box, and that will show the location of that.
All right, then one more.
Yeah.
When you're doing plug mold, and that has to show that has a power source, are you putting an outlet at the end of that?
So where that strip light plugs in.
No, a plug mold, or it's just a power bar.
Oh, yeah. So here's a for instance for that. So this particular plan, although I put some GFI outlets on the back here, I have a GFI plug strip under cabinet.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
That's a
I would typically handle that in that way. And then again, if we had a particular outlet that was you were using to basically make that strip hot, I would place the outlet and again do a text note that says here's the outlet placement that will run our GFI strip underneath the cabinet.
okay. All right. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Derek, we have a question from Gerald Teacher. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, I think my question has been answered, but I was wondering if you could create an electrical load box schedule whereby you could assign circuit numbers to a group of lights or switches or receptacles.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's certainly not automated, and at least not to my knowledge. Maybe someone else will chime in here. So typically, I would, and if you're doing this fairly regularly for your plans, I would use the CAD tools to create a table for that. And then you can put in your columns for what you need for your electrical loads and your various circuits for your what outlets are being driven and what the loads are on that. So it would just be a table that I would create, kind of like a similar to a legend. So if I bring that back up here in my library browser, so here's an electrical legend. Just zoom out here. So this is text-based. So I might create something like this for my electrical load table and have CAD lines that divide that up into the various columns and the various rows, and then type in the information that you need as it applies to that plan. And once you create a template for that, you can add it to the library and then just drop it down into each plan and enter that information in.
Is there a way to assign the circuit number to a light or a switch and have that automatically show in the plan?
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not. What you might do, just kind of brainstorming here, that if you had in let's say you're doing this for outlets and you can connect electrical outlets using the connect electrical, you can color code that. So you might have orange for a given color code, and you can notate orange in your table so that it would be easy to find out what your electrical circuits are, which one is which and how they apply to that electrical load table. That's
Derek,
just a thought. Yeah, Al.
if you were to open one of the plugs for specification,
Mm-hmm.
one of your outlets, you might be able to get something into either the object information or the components area in there that can be accessed from the schedule.
Oh,
Probably object information, because that you can type in. That might be a possible way to do that.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah,
So
I'd have to.
we'd have to check that one out.
Yep.
And you can display that some way on plan?
Well, what we would want to do would be to set up a situation where that would show in the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's going to actually display on plan, then we're going to have to actually add something to the fixture itself, which you can do.
Right.
But that's going to be manual.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Derek.
Yeah, Scott.
Yeah. If you come down to the very bottom of this and say create a new field,
Mm-hmm.
and we call it circuit. And then you could go in and put values in there. For example, you could say circuit 1 or circuit 2, whatever it is for this particular light. And then once you have that value in there, when you go into your schedule, you have access to that field. So you can put that in your schedule now that it's a new field, and then you have control over it. So when you open up the schedule now, you'll see this circuit field available in the schedule and you'll be able to see it. So yeah, there's the
Okay.
circuit. So you can then add that in there. You have more control over it. So if you want to add any custom items, that's an approach that you can use.
Yeah, that's great thinking there. Thanks, Scott.
And can that show up in the legend for the particular light or switch?
You should be able to add that in there as well. So if you have the value in there, if it's circuit 1, 2, 3, whatever, however you've numbered those, then you should be able to do it. You're probably a big macro guy, so there may be macros that you can put in there as well. And yeah, so do a little investigation in there. And if you got something great, maybe share it on social media and everybody can learn from it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, we'll check in with Cynthia Walden. Hi, Cynthia. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I actually have two questions. One is it's not so much for kitchens, but for bathrooms. I frequently put a sconce on either side of the mirror, and then there's maybe an outlet underneath and a switch. And in the plan view, it's just a red hot mess because you've got the symbols sort of one on top of the other. But in the elevation view, you can make it look perfect. And just wondering if you have a tip on, showing that in the plan view so that it's readable.
Gotcha. So for instance, if I zoom in on this bathroom here, we don't have a lot of real estate. We have a
Right,
GFI outlet. Maybe you have a sconce above that, so they're stacked one on the other.
right, exactly.
Yeah, I think that kind of boils down again to similar to that how to make dimensions less messy. I mean, one idea would be is we can move this GFI out of the way, show the sconce, and then do a arrow that shows a GFI in that location as well. But I don't think there's really a good answer when you have things stacked on one another. Other than you'd probably want the light fixture in its place, and if you want to dimension that out, you can do that of course in an elevation view.
Yeah.
And I think that yeah, you have a catch-22 if you're placing it accurately in your wall elevation for that, then your plan view is not going to look good. So yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22 on that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yeah, I don't think I have a great answer on that.
Okay. The CAD application I migrated from, their sconce symbol was kind of a lollipop. It was just a circle on a long stem. So it was able to show them okay in the plan view.
Mhm.
But okay, I'll just have to do a note then on that. And then my next question is, so typically, this has to do with schedules and material lists. So typically my remodels, I may have a ventilation fan with a light that's a higher CFM, and then one with a lower CFM. And then for my recessed lighting, there might be different light trims. There might be, a shower trim in one place and then a downlight. So is there an easy way beside like duplicating thing in my user library and changing the definition to show the different sort of model numbers in the schedule and in the material list?
Okay. So if I'm getting this right, one is you're wanting to deal with different CFMs, like for fans in bathrooms and showers. And then you have recessed lights, maybe a vapor-proof light that goes in a shower. And then the third question was how you can get those model numbers to show up in a schedule.
Correct.
Okay.
Or just a differentiation between the different like fan light combos, for example.
Gotcha. Well, one, I think that you would probably have to create different variations of the fan so that you can basically differentiate between the different CFMs. So you'd probably have to create, 3 or 4, however many different variations of the fan, and have those in your library. And then in the object information, and maybe Al can correct me if I'm wrong here, I would probably denote information here on what the CFM value is, and then that can carry over into your schedule.
Okay.
So I think that's how I would handle that part. In terms of the light fixtures, I'm going to bring up, let's go into our library here and our electrical legend. So if you're using a wet rated or a vapor proof fixture, we do have those objects in the library, and they'll show up as such. So this is a text-based legend, but that will show up in your regular schedule if you're going down the schedule version of that.
Okay.
And this is where using this type of legend can come in handy versus a schedule, because you can create whatever you want in a text-based version of that, where you're kind of stuck with the library object containing the info and displaying as you want. So you might consider managing your legends that way, and it's pretty easy. You might think, oh gosh, I don't want to go down this way that's not automated. But once you get a fully built out legend, it's just a matter of managing, pulling out the things that you don't need. And then, when it's fully built out, you rarely have to add additional. So in this case, you have 2 lights. You can create a new symbol that differentiates a 200 CFM with 150, and kind of call it out that way in this text-based legend. So I think you
Okay.
can probably do that in both ways.
Thank you.
Did that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Cynthia.
Derek, it looks like we have one last question from Linda Herman. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Yes. Hi, Derek. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Linda. Welcome. Yes, thank you.
Is there a way to rotate rope lighting into a vertical application?
Rope light vertical. I don't see why not. Let's take a look here. So I'm going to go in and we're going to create a wall elevation. And I don't know, let's do it maybe in this living area. Might be a little easier. And I'm going to grab my electrical tool, and nope, can't put that in an elevation. So let's try and draw in a rope light in this view. Can't grab it there. Let's take a look here. I'm just going to do a regular 3D view and see if we have, basically what I'm looking for is to see if I can select that. I do have it, and I'm not getting any rotate handles on there. Is anybody, Adrian, she's our content specialist. She may have some idea on that.
Yeah, I think that it is currently restricted to being horizontal only. Probably if you wanted to represent something like that vertically, you may need to just put individual light sources in your project that are very small, and you can use the multiple copy tool that Derek used in the very beginning for the recess light, and you can copy those vertically or in other directions. But I think for right now, the actual rope light tool can only be drawn horizontally.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good feedback, Linda. I'll jot that down and put that in our database for a feature request. I can see how that would be useful to be able to have
That
a
would,
vertical light.
yes, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Anything
Thank
else,
you.
Linda?
Nope, that's all.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to just wrap up with a couple of things here. So learning resources, I mentioned we have our free webinars, our virtual training seminars. We have on-demand classes, our one-on-one training that was with a screen share, one-on-one with a chief architect trainer. Training videos online, how-to articles, Chief Talk are all great resources for you all. Again, next week, the free Thursday webinar is going to be on 3D walkthroughs. We have quite a bit of new things coming out in the next version, so we're going to touch a little bit on what's coming up in X13 in that. So make sure you sign up so we can see you next week. That's happening Thursday, October 1st. Our website has also been updated with all the webinars that are happening in October, so make sure you go out and check those out as well. I mentioned our virtual training class that's coming up in November, so be sure to check that out if you'd like to get into those four-part, 4 half-day classes. We have those broken out by residential, intermediate, and kitchen and bath. Well, thanks everybody for attending the webinar today. Appreciate all the questions. We hope to see you all in next week's webinar. Thanks again for attending, and you have a fantastic day.